Now before we start this, I just want to let you know that this one is special. I mean, it's really gonna make your toes curl up like... And I still have like 15 more ideas, but I'm not gonna make 15 different videos because some of them only need maybe a 2-minute explanation, so even though this one could be its own video, I'm still gonna put a few short theories in at the end. After The Last Jedi, everyone had a lot of questions about Snoke. Where did he come from? What does he want? And what happened to his face? Of course we never get any answers because Disney would rather make an entire book to explain the plot holes instead of just adding in a few flashbacks or explanations into the last movie. I think the worst part about what Disney did to the franchise was never actually having a plan. I mean, I like that they gave creative control to the filmmakers, but they should have at least had a story supervisor to make sure certain details were put into the movies. And it's crazy that no one at Disney thought it'd be better to just bring Snoke back instead of Palpatine, because apparently you can survive getting cut in half and thrown down an elevator shaft, or thrown down an elevator shaft and blown up. But just getting cut in half means automatic death for some reason. He dead! They would rather have some Randy write a fucking book that no one's gonna read when they could have just paid a couple of YouTubers to come up with a backstory for Snoke for way less money. So according to the book, Snoke is a special type of clone called a strandcast. Now a strandcast is similar to a clone, but instead of just copying someone's genetic code and making a baby that's identical to the person, a strandcast is made from artificial genes that are created in a lab. Now it's a little bit more complicated than that, but Snoke's supposed to be a bioengineered person that's ultimately being controlled by Palpatine. And the half-developed Snokes we see in the lab are just backups that he keeps around in case the active Snoke gets killed.
You're stupid.
I figured out who Snoke really was by taking everything I knew about him and seeing if it would tell me any new information or if anything could be connected to details in other movies. Now you might not think we know a lot of things about Snoke, but we actually do know a lot of things about him. We know he's a human, or some type of alien that looks like a human, because I don't know if all humans in this universe originally came from one planet or if everyone's a different species but they all just look the same. We know he's a white guy, with blue eyes and a UK accent. We know he's a Force user, but not a Sith, and at some point he got injured really badly and it was probably from a lightsaber. Now if we take everything we know about Snoke, his age, his appearance, and his accent, and we go all the way back to the prequels, there's one person that fits the description perfectly. Now before I tell you who Snoke is, I'm really interested to see what everyone's thinking right now. Like at this point in the video, I wonder where you think I'm gonna go with this. Just put it in the comments if you know who Snoke is based on what I've already said so far. Now who have we seen in the prequels as a human Force user with blue eyes, a UK accent, and was sliced in the face with a lightsaber?
Master Skywalker, there are too many of them. What are we going to do?
This idea might not seem that important at first, but this kid being Snoke answers almost all the major questions from the sequels.
How, Sway?
It explains Rey's backstory. It explains why Palpatine is still alive, and it even explains why Luke really ran away to hide on the island. As always, all I ask is that you open your mind to a new perspective, and allow me to fill in the blanks with a little bit of logic. And hopefully my explanation might change the way you see the sequels, or maybe just make the story a little bit more interesting. The Last Jedi takes place 53 years after Revenge of the Sith. So if Snoke was about 6 years old here, that would mean he'd be about 60 years old in the sequels. And I know he might look a little older, but you have to remember that this is 57 and this is 45. Anakin killed everyone in the Jedi Temple, but he didn't check to see if anyone had survived. So a young Snoke would have been saved by a medical droid, and then a random Jedi would have taken him to a planet so he could secretly train with other Jedi. Snoke would spend the next 23 years growing stronger in the Force and planning his revenge on Vader, but he would ultimately turn to the dark side because all he could think about was getting revenge. Because of his injury, he was never able to become that good with the lightsaber, so he focused on learning forgotten Force powers that allowed him to telepathically invade and control other people's minds. Snoke's Force telepathy is a big part of his character because he never uses a lightsaber, so if he was gonna fight another Force user, he would definitely use his power instead of a physical confrontation. And this is what happened with Luke. Snoke telepathically manipulated him to kill Kylo, and because he didn't know how to stop Snoke from getting into his mind again, he cut himself off from the Force to keep everyone safe from him. But let's go back to Return of the Jedi, back to when Snoke first came back into the story. Snoke shows up just in time to see the second Death Star get blown up, and he finds Palpatine floating in space wrapped in a Force shield. Palpatine gives him an army of troopers, Star Destroyers, and the blueprints on how to make another Death Star. And Snoke gives him the secrets on how to clone and how to keep himself alive. Now this explains why the First Order looks so similar to the Empire, because Palpatine gave all of this stuff to Snoke. And it also explains the Snoke clones, because they're being used as a Force battery for Palpatine's life support. Snoke spends the next 20 years building Starkiller Base and hunting down any Jedi he can find, while Palpatine spent the time bioengineering a new body so he can transfer his consciousness into. Snoke, being a character from the prequels that comes back to have a partnership with Palpatine, ties up all the loose ends, and it even explains why Rey is so powerful. It never made sense that Palpatine's son would be a normal guy with a wife instead of being trained to be a Sith since birth. Beta! It's almost like J.J. Abrams just pulled this explanation out of his ass and he really didn't think about what it would mean to the rest of the story. But here's a better explanation. Rey is actually the bioengineered clone that was created so Palpatine can take over her body. And two of the scientists that helped make her hid her on Jakku because they found out what Palpatine was planning on doing with her. Since Rey is a bioengineered clone, she was genetically designed with suppressed force powers that she can instinctively use if the situation required it. So when Kylo tried to get into her mind, her pre-programmed powers kicked in. When she was being threatened with a lightsaber, she knew how to defend herself without any training. And this is why she has such a wide range of powers that seem to come out of nowhere, because they were all programmed into her DNA. This Snoke idea makes the overall story more tragic too, because Anakin was already a tragic character, but we never get to see how his turn to the dark side affected other people in the galaxy. All the bad things he's done and all the people he's killed would have definitely had an impact on a lot of people's lives in a negative way. It would have been a perfect final twist to have Anakin's turn to the dark side give birth to the person that would ultimately destroy his family and the Jedi. And I know this is way too deep for Disney or even George Lucas to come up with, but let me know what you think about this idea in the comments and tell me if it would have made the sequels better movies if this was all true. Now, I told you I put a few short theories in at the end, and these are just a few crazy ideas that I came up with so I can try to explain minor details that don't really make any sense. I had this big complicated Luke Skywalker theory, but I couldn't figure out how to explain everything all together, so I just made 3 different ideas that focus on one aspect at a time. Now, the first one is just a little fun detail that I noticed, but the last 3 all started as one big idea, so they all try to answer the same questions about Luke and Kylo. When the first movie came out, we really didn't know what the Force was or how the Jedi got their powers. But after the prequels, we learned that microscopic organisms called midichlorians were the reasons why people can use the Force. So even if no one ever taught you how to use it, you would still have some powers as long as your midichlorians were high. But Luke is almost 20 years old and he never shows any signs of being Force sensitive. Maybe Luke never used the Force because he didn't know he could, so he never really tried. Or maybe Obi-Wan told his aunt and uncle to make sure that he drank milk every day. What if midichlorians are lactose intolerant, and drinking milk blocks their ability to connect to the Force? Stay off the weed! Luke drinks blue milk on Tatooine every day, and when he stops drinking it, he becomes one of the most powerful Jedi ever, practically overnight. And when he goes to the island and cuts himself off from the Force, he goes back to drinking milk every day so the midichlorians can't connect him. Even though everyone hated The Last Jedi, I think the master and apprentice relationship between Luke and Kylo was the most interesting aspect of the story. We never see them interact in any meaningful way, so we never know what their relationship was like or how they really felt about each other. The only thing we do know for sure is that Kylo killed everyone at the Academy and Luke ran away to hide. Now I'm sure everyone that's smarter than a Rancor notices a massive problem with this situation because nothing about it makes any sense. So everything was going great at the Academy, and Luke just decides to bring a lightsaber in the middle of the night so he can spy on Kylo's dreams. And when Kylo wakes up, he completely flips out and convinces 6 other students to help him kill everyone at the school. And then after Luke crawled out of the rubble, he decided that the best thing to do was search the galaxy for the first Jedi Temple instead of dealing with the actual problem he was responsible for creating. And then when he gets to the island, he decides that the Jedi need to end, even though what happened with Kylo had nothing to do with the Jedi philosophy. What if Kylo actually did kill everyone at the Academy, and the Luke we see on Ahch-To was actually dead the whole time? Now I'm not saying he's a Force ghost here. What I am saying is that he's a normal ghost, but he just doesn't know that he's dead. The first thing I noticed about Luke was that no one makes physical contact with him the whole time. He touches Rey with the leaf and has a quick sparring session where their staffs touch, but even when he falls on the ground, he doesn't actually touch it. And think about Kylo's reaction when he saw Luke. He looks like he's seen a ghost, right? Why would he be this afraid when he's already killed an entire school of Jedi, killed his own dad, and cut 2 different people in half? It's because he knew he already killed Luke, so seeing him now was literally seeing a ghost. Oh, and the other thing that didn't make any sense was running away to hide, but leaving a map, and then when someone does find you, you don't want to help even though that was the whole purpose of leaving the map. I think the reason R2 had that section of the map was because the Force can communicate through technology. It's the reason why Rey had a lightsaber vision, or why R2 always seems like he's telepathically connected to Force users. After Luke died, he woke up on the island as a ghost and he was able to send R2 his location. But since he didn't know exactly where he was, the only information he can send was the surrounding area that he could see. Luke doesn't know that he's dead. He doesn't know why he came to the island, and he doesn't know why he can't leave. He thinks coming here and staying here was his decision, and the reason he doesn't have Force powers is because he decided to cut himself off from it. He's stuck on the island because he can only exist in a physical world in places that are strong with the Force. And he was only able to become a Force ghost in the end when he finally accepted that he was dead. I don't agree with all of Rian Johnson's creative decisions, but the one thing I think he got right was Luke. Everyone complained that he wasn't the same character and the real Luke Skywalker would be more hopeful and would have never ran away to hide, but everyone is wrong. Luke was only this super optimistic good guy in the first movie, but as soon as he got exposed to the harshness of the galaxy, he got less and less enthusiastic every time we saw him. What if Luke did try to kill Kylo? And because a few students saw what happened, he ended up killing everyone at the school to cover his tracks, and Kylo and the Knights of Ren were the only ones that survived. It's pretty obvious that Luke has always used both sides of the Force. The way he dresses, the way he acts, and the fact that he has to struggle to fight Darkside urges. Someone who's been a Jedi for 30 years shouldn't be having these Darkside panic attacks in the middle of the night. And the only sensible explanation is that Luke killed everyone and he tried to blame Kylo. So I figured I'd save the most fucked up one for last because out of all the ideas in this video, I honestly think this one has the most evidence for actually being true. What really happened at the Jedi Academy? Because it feels like the story we get isn't the whole story, or something else must have happened that no one wants to talk about. According to Luke, Kylo turned to the dark side, killed everyone at the Academy, and then ran off to join the First Order. But that's not exactly what we see in the flashbacks. Luke and Kylo both tell their sides of the story, and the only thing they can agree on is that Luke came into his room at night and Kylo thought he was there to kill him. But the reason he was in the room in the first place is where it all gets kinda strange. We see 3 different flashbacks, 2 from Luke and 1 from Kylo. And the first one is a lie because Luke tried to make it sound like he was the victim. So if he was willing to lie about that one, then why wouldn't he lie about everything else? Luke said Kylo already turned to the dark side that night, but it's not like he came into Luke's room with his lightsaber because that would have been understandable. But what if all 3 of these flashbacks are a lie? And this was actually this. If something like this was happening, it would make sense for Kylo to flip out because his drunk uncle was coming into his room at night trying to slide him the old lightsaber. This actually gives Kylo a reason to join the dark side because he hates Luke and everything he stands for. This also makes Luke running away to hide more understandable, because he was ashamed of what he did and he didn't want to admit what he was doing to Kylo for all those years. Maybe this is what all Jedi do to their Padawan, and it could be the reason why Luke wanted the Jedi to end, or why Anakin hated Obi-Wan so much.